Hey everybody, Skeletor here. I know a lot of you probably thought I might have stopped making videos or died off or something. However, that was not the case. What actually happened was back in June. As you can see on my screen here, on June 26, 2017, my YouTube account was terminated. And apparently I somehow violated their community guidelines for uploading my video, which was the heroic avatar of Zargeris Ret point of view. It got flagged for review somehow, and they determined it violated it, and they banned my account. And that went on for a long time. I filed many appeals to be unbanned, and none of them went through. But a couple weeks ago, one of my appeals finally went through, and they concluded that they did make an error and that I was not in violation of their terms of service. So they have unbanned my account. So I am back. I've gone ahead and deleted all those videos just in case, all my heroic Tomb of Sargeras videos, because I don't want to deal with that. Going forward, I will have those same videos uploaded in the future with BfA content, or BfA. But, yep, 313 days later, I'm unbanned here. And so, for our first video, I do want to go over some of the BfA content for Ret Paladins. So, in my absence here, I have been watching a lot of the Ret videos posted about BfA on YouTube. Things like guides, talent reviews, how the spec plays and whatnot. And just reading like MMO champion forums, reading the WoW forums, reading in Discord. And a lot of people are saying things or alluding to things that aren't necessarily true. So what I wanted to go over here was just some of the things I've been hearing or seeing that are incorrect or lack context. Alright, there's not going to be much going on in the background here. I'm just going to leave this on the Ret Paladin page from Wowhead for our talents, but I have a few pages here we'll go over later. So the first thing that people have been talking about, they've been saying that Shield of Vengeance is nerfed. Which is not the case, first of all. Currently, on live, Shield of Vengeance scales off attack power and off versatility. And in BfA, it scales off max HP, which is 30% of your maximum HP, which is a large chunk. Now on live, with the scaling off AP and versatility, Shield of Vengeance was about 15% of your health on the high end. It could potentially be lower or higher depending on your gear. But we did know that Shield of Vengeance could crit, so sometimes that initial absorb would crit, and it would be close to 30% of your health. And now in BfA, it's just a flat 30% HP. There is no crit, so it's always that full absorb amount. So on average, it is much stronger than Legion. And it also has the new benefit that it will explode even if the damage isn't fully absorbed. What happens though, let's say only half of it is absorbed, you'll only do half of the damage. It doesn't apply full damage, it applies the damage you've taken back. So again, overall, a big improvement and a quality of life improvement. As a side note, however, it is on the global cooldown now. But it is still worth using to do damage or as a defensive. Its value hasn't gone down, it's just more of an annoying change, if anything. So second thing, some people are doing early reviews of Ret. Again, I'm not going to name and shame anyone in this video here. These have just been videos that I've watched on YouTube. Some of them have been very small, not many views. Some of them have tens of thousands of views, and they've made some pretty big errors. But one example is, people are saying that Shield of Vengeance is bugged, and it's not scaling off of our mastery or versatility. Which again, that's not the case here. Shield of Vengeance is now purely scaling off health percent. No external factors such as attack power or mastery, Avenging Wrath, Inquisition, none of that will increase the damage of Shield of Vengeance. It's based only off of your max HP for the absorb and for the damage that it does. And with all things right, the next thing we're seeing here, everyone is talking about how much haste you need. One of the common ranges I've seen thrown out is that for BfA ret to feel good or to play properly, you need 32 to 35% haste. I have no idea where this person got their numbers from or who they got it from, but it's entirely not true. There is no haste percentage you should be aiming for. At this time anyways. That could always change, but there's no real relevant breakpoints that you have to aim for. That being said though, it is possible that it could change in the future, but as well, haste currently is looking to be our best stat in BfA, so naturally we'll probably have a lot of haste anyways. There was a second thing I've seen. Now this, granted, this point was brought up in an older version of BfA. I imagine if they reevaluated it, they would change their opinion now, but it was still wrong then, so I want to cover it. Someone was talking about there might be some sort of Justicar's Vengeance build, where you run Justicar's Vengeance and Divine Purpose, and you would need 35 to 40% haste. And the whole point of that build was to only use Justicar's Vengeance instead of Templar's Verdict, which did not really make that much sense. At the time, Justicar's Vengeance did do slightly more damage than Templar's Verdict. However, now it's been changed. Templar's Verdict does more damage than Justicar's Vengeance. So at this point, even if you did have Justicar's Vengeance and Divine Purpose talented, you still would not cast Justicar's Vengeance. You would use that Divine Purpose proc on Templar's Verdict. The only time that Justicar's Vengeance does more damage than Templar's Verdict is on a stunned target. And even then, on a stunned target, it does more damage overall than Templar's Verdict, but the damage per holy power spent is still less than Templar's Verdict. So pretty much you'll only use that if you absolutely have to finish off a mob or you really want the heal. In terms of actual DPS increases, it is not one. Alright, so something else that we've got up here is people have been saying that BfA ret feels just as fast as Legion. Now, important thing to note here, all these people that are saying, that I've seen that say it's as fast as Legion, they're talking from a point of view where they're just out in the world killing mobs and whatnot. And obviously when you're fighting a mob that you're going to kill in 4 or 5 hits, the combat pace is going to seem fine. However, once you leave that environment and go into raids, or some dungeon bosses right now because they have a lot of health, they are pretty highly tuned, they take a while to kill, or just smacking on a training dummy, there is a lot more downtime in BfA compared to Legion. So right now, at a mythic raid level, base mythic gear, in Antorus, you probably have around 2 to 3% downtime. And the way it's looking in Battle for Azeroth right now, if you pick the currently what people consider the best build, which is Zeal, Blade of Wrath or Hammer of Wrath, Consecration or Wake of Ashes, and Inquisition, your overall downtime is looking to be in the 12 to 15% range. So it is quite a substantial increase. Now, a lot of people are attributing that to the fact that we have a lower haste percentage at the start of Battle for Azeroth, but haste alone is not going to fix this issue. Even if you run the numbers, which I did run the numbers, I ran through Simcraft. Simcraft is available for BfA. There's no fancy interface for it yet though, so you have to compile it yourself and run it and know how to do that. But even if we plug our haste all the way up to 40% or higher, it has a minimal effect on our downtime. It does not make those gaps in our rotation any less apparent. And regardless of that fact, personally, I don't believe that a spec should require a certain haste percentage to feel okay. So even if that was the case, I would consider that bad game design. But however, like I said earlier, so far in Battle for Azeroth, haste is looking to be our best stat, so we'll probably be stacking it anyways. Or at least stacking it where we can. There's also been some other weird things coming in, like one of the more popular videos stated that the cooldown on Judgment is 15 seconds, the base cooldown, which isn't true. All you have to do is go to Wowhead or WowDB or whatever site you want to go to that has update information, and you can see the base cooldown on Judgment is 12 seconds, which can be reduced by haste. Another thing I've seen, some people, they've made videos, people that clearly they don't play Ret, they just wanted to hop on the alpha hype train and make a video. They were saying the spec feels very bad because they're waiting for the Judgment debuff to be back up before they use their spenders. One of the biggest changes from Legion to BfA is that there is no more Judgment window. Right now on BfA, when you judge a target, you get a debuff on the target that increases the damage of your next Holy Power spender. And it only works on one spender, so you don't need to delay or wait for anything. You can Templar's Verdict or Divine Storm at any time. So again, you're not going to be holding your Holy Power or pulling it waiting for Judgment. You're just going to keep on casting your TVs and Divine Storms on CD. It is not an issue. With Judgment, though, buffing the Holy Power spenders, some people are saying because Execution Sentence does more damage than Templar's Verdict, that you should use your Judgment debuff on Execution Sentence. That is not the case. Execution Sentence does slightly more damage than Templar's Verdict, but it is best to use Execution Sentence, then use Judgment, and then use Templar's Verdict. When you do that, your Templar's Verdict is buffed by Judgment, and it is also buffed by the Execution Sentence debuff. So it's a double buffed attack, it does more damage that way. That was a little bit of a tricky thing, I could see people being confused by that. My initial thought was that that might be superior, but it was a small difference, but they have nerfed it a bit, so. And TV's been buffed, so it's now a significant, it is significantly better to use that Judgment buff on Templar's Verdict. Other Judgment-related concerns I've seen, people were saying, they might have just been misspeaking, they might not have intentionally meant this, but they stated that Judgment increases the damage of any of your next abilities or all abilities. So just again, the Judgment debuff is only for your Holy Power spenders that are damaging, so that doesn't include Inquisition or Word of Glory. They won't consume that debuff. And it doesn't benefit all attacks. Just your Holy Power spenders that deal damage. Another minor thing is Blade of Wrath. So on live, Blade of Wrath is a 4 real proc per minute talent. People are saying that Blade of Wrath on BfA is the exact same, which isn't entirely true. They have nerfed the RPPM. It is now 3.5 instead of 4, which you can view here on Wowhead. We're on the BfA page, we move over Blade of Wrath. We can clearly see it's 3.5 now. So another common misconception that ties in here with Blade of Wrath is zeal. Because Blade of Wrath only procs off auto attacks, people are saying that zeal, because it increases the speed of your next 3 autos, will cause more Blade of Wrath procs, which isn't true. I know the wording, it would make sense to look at that and think that's what happens, but that's not how it works, unfortunately. The way that RPPM works In simple terms, is you have your base RPPM, which for Blade of Wrath is 3.5, and that's modified by haste, not attack speed. The number of attacks that you do does not factor in. So if you had 22% haste, you would take your 3.5 RPPM, you would multiply it by 1.22, which would make the actual RPPM of Blade of Wrath 4.27. Now, however, it is worth pointing out that it is bugged currently in the beta. Zeal is actually indeed increasing the proc chance of Blade of Wrath, but this is not intended behavior. So this will be fixed at some point. Alright, so moving on, some other things. Is one of the videos stated that if you talent Inquisition and Wake of Ashes together, it's going to cause you to lose holy power in some form. I'm not sure how they came to that conclusion. There's nothing about Inquisition that would make you lose holy power from Wake of Ashes. Regardless of what talents you pick, if you have Wake of Ashes, there will be times where you waste 1 holy power. Because what will happen is you'll have 1 holy power and Blade of Wrath will be on cooldown, but you can't generate 2. So you would go ahead and just use Wake of Ashes and you would only get 4 holy power instead of 5. But again, that happens no matter what other talents you have. There's nothing about an interaction between Wake of Ashes and Inquisition that would cause you to lose more holy power. So a common thing I've been seeing is people are saying, if you pick Crusade, you have to use Hammer Wrath and you have to use Execution Sentence. Now, this doesn't just apply to these 3 talents. I've been seeing people say it for other things too, like if you pick this talent, you have to have this talent. It's not worth it to do the other way around, which isn't the case. Right now, you can freely pick which talents you want. Obviously, there are going to be talents that are better in terms of tiered numbers for different scenarios. But right now, as an example, people saying that you have to have Crusade, Hammer of Wrath, and Execution Sentence if you choose Crusade. That's not true. That's not even the highest damage setup for Crusade. So again, people are saying these things. They're not actually testing them in any sort of way. It is worth it to point out, though, that currently Crusade is a very weak talent. Recently, our Avenging Wrath was changed and buffed, which Crusade is very weak. Right now, even Divine Purpose is better than Crusade in nearly all scenarios. So we'll probably see some Crusade changes, I imagine. Alright, second biggest contention that I've been seeing is people are saying that Consecration is a useless or dead talent and it can't compete with Wake of Ashes. So again, that's something that is not true. When you compare the damage gain of Consecration over Wake of Ashes, Consecration is actually slightly more damage overall than Wake of Ashes. So in terms of damage, it's actually better. That applies to single target and multi-target. Now the thing here about Consecration now is that it is a 20-second cooldown, which is not reduced by haste. So the cooldown is always 20 seconds. And it only lasts for 6 seconds. So people are, what's happening is they think because it has such a long cooldown that it's not worth it. But this was intentionally designed this way. The problem with Consecration is that it is stationary. If the tank moves the targets out of your Consecration, you're losing damage effectively. So to offset that, they've given Consecration a long cooldown and a short duration to make that less of an issue. And it happens to work quite well. On to more dead talent talk. People are saying that Hammer of Wrath is a dead talent or an inferior choice. Now again, I mentioned earlier that Zeal and Blade of Wrath are bugged. So we're going to exclude that. We're going to assume the scenario is that Blade of Wrath works properly. When Blade of Wrath is working properly, Blade of Wrath and Hammer of Wrath are pretty much equal in terms of damage. In some scenarios, one can come out higher than the other by a small amount, but effectively, they are equal in damage. Now, obviously, Hammer of Wrath is not a very hard-hitting move, so it does not feel satisfying to press that. And that's the big thing here that people are seeing. Because it does such little damage, in some cases just barely more than Crusader Strike, they immediately think that it is worthless, which is not the case. Again, it can compete with Hammer Wrath, or with Blade of Wrath without an issue. And also, as well, with Hammer Wrath, it does give you less downtime in your rotation than Blade of Wrath. So, Hammer Wrath is usable during your Avenging Wrath, and also usable in the 20% execute range. So even though there's only small windows where you can use it, because those windows are consistent, overall, you will have less downtime. And even if we exclude the execution phase, Hammer Wrath is not far behind Blade of Wrath, excluding that. And in terms of downtime, again, Hammer Wrath will have slightly more downtime outside of the execution phase by a few seconds, but not too much. And for Hammer Wrath to be equal to Blade of Wrath, you only have to be in the execution phase for about 26 seconds. So you only need 26 seconds of sub 20% for Hammer Wrath to be equal to Blade of Wrath. And that's excluding wings being up during execution phase. So again, if you have appear 26 seconds of no wings during execute, Hammer Wrath will be an equal, if not better, talent choice. Now again, I'm not a fan of Hammer Wrath as it is now. I do agree that it is not satisfying to press. It's something we had baseline for a long time. It kind of sucks to see it as a talent in this form. Right now, the popular option is to make it a pure execute, not usable during wings, which I think would be a great change. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. Now, because Hammer Wrath isn't that hard, there is one immensely popular video here on YouTube. And the person made the suggestion of Blizzard should double the damage of Hammer Wrath, and also double the cooldown of Hammer Wrath, but remove the Holy Power generation. Which, yeah, they're thinking, hey, it's gonna do more damage now, it'll feel better to press. But there's a couple issues with that. First, if we just let's ignore the Holy Power part, let's just assume it was double damage and double cooldown. What would happen there is that the amount of damage that Hammer of Wrath did itself would be the same. If you have 6 casts of Hammer of Wrath that are very strong, or 12 casts of Hammer of Wrath that are half as strong, it adds up to the same amount. Now, if we also factor in, we're not generating that 6 extra Holy Power from having 6 more Hammer of Wraths, that change would automatically be a DPS downgrade. And if we go even further with their suggestion of completely removing the Holy Power generation from Hammer of Wrath, while doubling the damage and doubling the cooldown, that would actually nerf Hammer of Wrath by about 49 to 50%. That would be a massive nerf. That would be a horrible change. Alright, so one of the final things I want to go over here is talking about our Mastery and Avenging Wrath and Crusade. So the way it appears now, you'll see like Mastery here, says increases holy damage done by 13%. This is rounded, it's actually 12.8%. Not a huge deal, Blizzard does round tooltips, so does Wowhead. But you might think that this Hand of Light damage applies to all holy damage, but that is not the case. Because during Legion, on-use trinkets were such a huge issue, with certain classes where their mastery would affect, or their cooldowns would affect the damage, they've made all of our cooldowns and masteries heavily whitelisted. And what that means is if we go to mastery here, there's a list of approved spells that can be buffed by your mastery. And the spells that can be buffed by our mastery are limited to spells that the Ret Paladin has access to regardless of their class, or sorry, regardless of their race. So it works on their core abilities and talents. So we can see here, Hammer of Wrath, Wake of Ashes, Judgment, Hammer of Reckoning, Templar's Verdict, Consecration, things like that. It all works. You'll see a few leftover spells here too. You'll see like Divine Hammer still hidden in here. But again, we don't have Divine Hammer anymore. So for the spell to be buffed, it has to be present in the whitelist. And the same goes for Avenging Wrath. They did change the wording of Avenging Wrath as well. It says increasing your damage, healing, and critical strike chance by 20%. If we look at the old wording here, it says increases all damage. So they changed it from all damage to your damage, which is, it's not a shady thing to do, but it wouldn't occur to someone that the change from all to your would change what it buffs. So again, the same as our mastery, Avenging Wrath only has certain spells that are approved. If you hear any noise in the background there, that's my cat. It's scratching on the table here. Come on, cat. No scratching. No scratching. Okay. So again, it has a whitelist. You'll see some extra abilities here, because remember that Avenging Wrath is also shared with Prot and Holy. But it's only going to buff the damage of the moves that are available to Ret as a spec. It's not going to buff trinkets and whatnot. And that same thing also applies to Inquisition, because Inquisition does increase damage by 8%. But again, as you can see here, it's whitelisted. It's limited only to the spells available to Ret. And Execution Sentence. So again, it is also whitelisted to certain spells. So people won't be stacking trinkets and whatnot anymore because they can be buffed by their cooldowns or by their mastery. Alright, and that's pretty much all I had here. I do plan on making more videos here in the future. I'm not sure if I'll have any more beta videos, but if something comes up, or if any of you have any ideas or things you want to see, definitely let me know. As a side note here, I have updated my site as well. Before it was on that wiki format, but it's now on a WordPress format here. It still has all the same content, and this guide will be updated for the pre-patch and for BfA. So again, same guide, same table of contents. Not too much has changed in this overall. The guide is still here. There's some other things as well under guides. There's some basic cooldown stuff. There's a quick tips page for Mythic and Taurus, so you can check those out. There's an FAQ page, which has a few FAQs there. One of the bigger changes to the site is that I do have my own trinket graphs here, and they're somewhat interactive here. You can mouse over the bars and see what they do. You can see the total DPS and the DPS gain per eye level. If you want to filter out eye levels, you can click on them over here and exclude them. So a nice little interactive type deal there for you. But again, I'm glad I'm no longer banned here from YouTube. Plan on making some more videos here in the future. I want to give a shout out to my guild Sorry A on Area 52 Horde. We're working on Mythic Argus currently. I know it's a bit late in the race here, if you want to call it a race, but I am streaming on Twitch, so you can watch us fail spectacularly until we eventually kill it. But thank you, and have a good day.